Mi gente latino.
If there's one thing the US can be sure of, is this. If you mess with mi gente latino, even Argentina and Brazil will unite against you. And you know what? That is what happened with Emilia Pérez after the Golden Globes. Well, until Argentina decided to talk shit about Fernanda Torres' hair. Then we went back to hating each other. That woman looked fabulous, okay? The hair and the naked back were my favorite things about her look. 2025 is already a year to remember for us Brazilians, with Fernanda Torres getting nominated 25 years after her mother and winning up against 5 blondes. Let's see about the Oscars though. I want Fernanda to get revenge for what happened to Fernanda Montenegro. I'm looking at you, Gwyneth Paltrow. Brazil and a lot of Latin America is tuned in to see what's coming next. The second thing that keeps us together more than hope is hate. Especially for the colonizer. You don't mess with Brazil, man, you just don't. We can be a powerful ally and the ruthless enemy. It's up to you. As for Emilia Pérez, bitch, we chose violence. It became the most hated film that has never been watched. Because to be honest, I had never heard of this movie before this whole thing happened. To be fair, if the movie perpetrates racist stereotypes and is disrespectful in its depiction of Mexican drug trafficking and the violence that comes with it, we have the right to hate it without watching that shit. But let me take a wild guess. This movie is going to provide us with a very American and Eurocentric, common sense view of Mexico, the same view that keeps the borders tall and insurmountable. In this video, that's going to be divided in 2 parts, I'm gonna talk in detail about why we hate this movie and also give an honest review. The review will be on part 2 though, so stay tuned because I did sit in front of a TV for a couple of hours and took it in. No lube, no spit, bare fucking back, okay? And although I do love some research, I won't be dwelling deep into the problematics surrounding the topic of drug trafficking in Mexico, but I will provide you with some movie recommendations that I found through people online. Welcome to the movie trial. Opening statements. Why Latin America collectively hates this damn movie. Alright, let's get a little 13 reasons why up in here and talk about the 5 reasons why Latin America collectively hates this movie. Reason number 1, the Golden Globes win because it's bad. First and foremost, I want to talk a little about the movie for those of you who didn't even know it existed, like me. Emilia Pérez is a Netflix original film starring Carla Sofia Gascon, Selena Gomez, and Zoe Saldana. All of which are the American dream, with the exception of Carla, who is Spanish. We'll get more into that later. Here's what this synopsis says. Rita, played by Zoe Saldana, works at a law firm more interested in laundering money than serving the law. To survive, she helps a cartel boss get out of business so she can finally become the woman she always dreamed of being. To be honest, it already sounds like it could go very wrong. And it doesn't even mention the fact that it's a musical. I've heard that the movie is xenophobic down to the Netflix synopsis, but I couldn't find it anywhere because the movie isn't coming out in Brazil until February 6th. But I did find this Netflix article where Sofia Gascon says this. Like its titular character, Emilia Pérez is many things. You have an action movie that's not an action movie, a drama that's not a drama, a comedy that's not a comedy. It is such a great gift, and I'm so proud to be part of it. And you know what? It just sounds like a mess to me. I don't know why she said it like it's a compliment. Well, it's a musical. That we know. When the Golden Globes nominations came in, it was said that Emilia Pérez was leading with a total of 10 nominations, including one for each of its main actresses, according to this article from People. So, what happened that night? It won, yeah.
And the Golden Globe goes
to Emilia Pérez.
A total of 4 awards. Oh. A total of 4 awards, including Best Non-English Film, which I think is the one people are most mad about, because not only is this movie packed with English-speaking actors who are not Mexican, with the exception of Adriana Paz, but it is also very offensive towards the people whose stories it's trying to tell. It caused an immediate reaction from Mexican people. They even sent a message to the Academy. Mexicans detonate Emilia Pérez and send a message to the Oscars. This is a message to the Academy. Mexico hates Emilia Pérez. Eurocentrist, racist mockery. Almost 500,000 dead. And France decides to make a musical. No Mexicans in the team or cast. So you see, the situation is revolting to say the least. Also because in all categories this movie won, there were much better options. Like I'm Still Fucking Here for Best Non-English Film. This is where the alliance began, you see. We were robbed, disrespected, and ridiculed by the Golden Globes, all in the same night. Zoe Saldana earned the Best Supporting Actress category and gave a speech that many people were mocking her for, saying that she was forcing a Mexican accent.
Selena, Ariana, Margaret, Felicity,
Enrique Iglesias,
thank you, Camille, Damian, Jalet, thank you, Virginie, thank
Jennifer Lopez,
no one, eres única, eres única.
Pitbull.
To be fair, she is of Puerto Rican and Dominican descent. At least that's what her Wikipedia page says. Saldana is of Puerto Rican and Dominican descent. It also says that she spent her childhood in the Dominican Republic, so she must speak Spanish. I've seen her do it in that one show filled with anti-communist propaganda that I only watched because there were lesbians in it, but I cannot speak on her fluency because I speak Portuguese, not Spanish. Shocker. I know, right? Anyway, Mi Gente Latino snatched another award for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy, which also got people riled up. Why? Because the music is so... So it's a French movie with a story set in Mexico, but with no Mexican actors or crew members. It's not even filmed in Mexico, and it's a musical. But the music is bad and made by French people and a Spanish translator. It won for being so bad. It's funny then. It's comedic. I mean, look at the scene.
Hello, very nice to meet you. I'd like to know about sex change operation.
I see.
This tweet says, any scene from Wicked humiliates Emilia Pérez, even the most simple. And I agree, especially this one.
Oh, I saved you some space, by the way. It is just in here. It's great.
But seriously, if you didn't want to let a horror movie win, you could have at least given it to Wicked. And look, I have my grasps with the substance. That movie fucking traumatized me, and the final scene is the most horrible mess I've ever seen. I know some people love it, but I hated it. Some people were laughing in theaters watching that scene. I was bawling my fucking eyes out. I had the worst crying fit ever. This was me surviving the end of that movie. And yet, I think it deserved to win. It did. I feel it in my heart. Also helps that horror is my favorite genre, and it has a history of being snubbed by all these major awards. Okay, that's it for the Golden Globes. Now, let's look at the problem amongst the making of the movie. Reason number 2, the direction and director. This is no secret. Not only is the movie filled with offensive stereotypes and bad representation, but also it's just bad all around. Jax Audiard, I will not know how to pronounce his name, sorry, is French, white, and cis. He also doesn't speak English or Spanish, yet he has no problem admitting in interviews that he didn't do any research on Mexican culture for this movie because he, quote unquote, knew enough.
¿Qué tanto tuviste que estudiar México para poder hacer esta película?
Non, pas tant que ça.
No, no lo estudié tanto.
Pas tant que ça, c'est-à-dire que ce que j'avais à comprendre, je le savais.
Lo que tenía que entender ya lo sabía un poco.
Alors après c'est forcément sur des détails. Et puis on est venu ici beaucoup pour repérer, on a vu beaucoup de décors, beaucoup d'acteurs, beaucoup de gens.
Y bueno, seguramente fueron más bien como detalles. Y vinimos muchísimo aquí a México para ver actores, para ver lugares, para la decoración, etc.
Audiard also stated that he chose to make the movie in Spanish because it is the language of the poor. Yeah. The film is not even filmed in Mexico, by the way. The whole thing was filmed in Paris. That shit might as well be called Emily in Paris. Let's take a look at his curriculum, shall we? As you can see, Audiard is not known for making great musical films. I don't think he's ever made a musical in his life, and it shows. Do you know that joke about musicals being people starting to sing out of nowhere? Yeah, this movie is the paragon of that, because the musical numbers in this film are abrupt on a whole new level. They come and go as subtle as a fucking train. Not to mention that the songs are pretty bad, boring at best and cringy at worst. This is an excerpt from the same Netflix article where Sofia Gascon declares that his movie is a bunch of nothing. This is what Audiard has to say for himself. The film is also, among many other genres, Gascon cites an operatic musical. During the first lockdown, I wrote a treatment quickly, and I realized along the way that it was closer to an opera libretto than to a film script. It was broken down into acts. There were few sets, the characters were archetypal. The idea of doing an opera had crossed my mind as I was working on a self-made hero. So to paraphrase Gascon, Emilia Pérez is an opera that's not an opera, unbound by theatrical constraints. The film scale is grand, and its characters are more complex than the archetypes Audiard originally sketched out. Yeah, I don't know about that. Reason number 3, the racism and the transphobia. As Audiard himself admitted, this film is filled with archetypes of Mexican culture and of trans storylines. It also has no amount of research or care for the marginalized groups it claims to represent put into it, as he also admitted. Stereotypes would be a better word for what this film does. And the most blatant part of it is Emilia. When Carla Sofia Gascon appears as Manitas, she's a caricature of a cartel boss. She has gold teeth, face tattoos, and a raspy deep voice, like this. And when she hires Hita to help her find a good doctor to have gender-affirming surgery, it's like she's hiring a fucking hitman. Not to mention that they keep calling it a sex change operation, woman to man, penis to vagina, like very wrong language. I found this essay by Spanish philosopher and queer theorist Paul B. Preciado called Saving Emilia, where he discusses the film's transphobic and racist undertones very eloquently. And I'm going to read some paragraphs for you, the ones in which there are no spoilers to what we will see on the next video. It was translated to English by Ferry de Mercury on Twitter, and the translated version will be linked in the description. I recommend you read it all the way through. It's fucking great. While presenting itself as a super modern film with feats of narrative invention, Emilia Pérez when one knows the history of trans representation is a palimpsest of colonial and binary semiotic ruins, as predictable as it is anachronistic, abiding by the requirements of the hegemonic narrative canon that has been challenged by collectives and by trans and racialized individuals themselves. Emilia Pérez perpetuates a psychopathological vision of gender transition that relies on four tropes: criminalization, ethnographic exotization, oh Jesus, medical surgical representation of gender transition, and execution. Audiard's film is part of a lineage starting with Hitchcock in Psycho, later followed by Brian De Palma in Dress to Kill and Jonathan Demme in The Silence of the Lambs, in which a trans woman is portrayed as an assassin, a frustrated psychopath man in pursuit for vengeance. The difference is that Emilia rather seeks redemption instead of killing to become a woman. Audiard's killer will become a woman to stop killing, but will never escape the accountability of crime and wrongdoing. According to this story, which is based on the sexual division of violence, gender transition can only be a path to atonement for guilt through sacrifice, passage from killer to saint, from masculinity as the operator of death to femininity as the passive receptacle of violence. A polysemous amalgamation laden with racism and transphobia, Latinx exoticism, and melodramatic binarism. The figure of Emilia reinforces the colonial and pathologizing narrative, not only about gender transition, but also about Mexican culture. The film presents the desire to become trans as the ultimate and most criminal whim of a Mexican drug trafficker, one that must be carried out in secret and can only be paid for with the dirty money from drugs. To become a woman, the narco man must change not only sex, but also skin, face, body, and soul. The entire being, somewhere between a horror film and a sexploitation style comedy, like Let Me Die a Woman. Once Dr. Frankenstein Audiard's cinematic operation is complete, Emilia first appears as a faceless body, entirely covered in white bandages, a hybrid of the mummy, Christiane in Les Yeux Sans Visage, and Vera in La Piel que Habito. It is to suggest that the reason the drug trafficker wants to become a woman is to whiten himself, in both the sense of washing away his guilt and shedding his identity, literally tearing off his skin as a racialized Mexican macho. When I speak of transphobia and racism in this film, I do not refer to the conscious intent or individual malice of its director, cinematographer, or musicians. I refer to a historically constituted and omnipresent colonial and binary epistemology, which is as visible as water to a big fish in the film industry who has no experience of what it means to breathe and live outside of a dominant, white, Eurocentric and binary culture. And don't tell me you like the film as your final argument. The fact that you liked it is precisely the proof that you are still comfortably swimming in the waters of colonial and binary ideology. This violence is not exclusive to Audiard. Most films with a trans main character are narrative thefts, biographical intrusions, political aggressions, and more or less visible attempts to mobilize revolutionary minority forces to drive us out, even from our own imaginary territory. But we have a history, stories that have not been told and cannot be told by Audiard, despite his talent as a filmmaker. Stop exoticizing us. Stop consuming us. Stop killing us through image and narrative. Stop turning our desire, our bodies, our struggle to survive, and our deaths into your political and sexual amusement park. Udia. No, vai ser Audiard mesmo. And then Paul makes a great comparison, saying that Emilia is to trans representation what the color purple was to black representation. So you see, although this film may look like positive representation and innovative cinema, and to some people, it was exactly that, this movie does the opposite. Like Preciado stated in his text, this movie is nothing but a rehash of the harmful storyline associated with trans people and most commonly seen in horror films, in which not only the trans body is fetishized and exploited, but also, in this case, the body of Latinx people too. Two birds with one fucking stone. The difference being this one was made to win awards. And it did. And it'll probably win even more. Why? Because Europeans and Americans don't give a fuck about Mexican people. Hell, the movie itself doesn't give a fuck about Mexico. Okay, let's go to reason number 4, the casting. Casting director Carla Hu said in an interview for the SAG-AFTRA Foundation that they did search for Mexican actors but couldn't find anyone good enough for the role. Like, they couldn't find Mexican actors who could play Mexican characters authentically.
Tricky because Jesse, Rita, and Emilia, they were all Mexican characters. So we did a big search. We were open, and we did a big search in Mexico and in the US and in Spain and all Latin America. And then we wanted to keep it really authentic. But at the end of the day, the best actors who embodied these characters are the ones that are right here, right? So we had to figure out how to adjust authenticity, which I'm sure you ladies also said something, with the accents and, you know, them not being necessarily native Mexican. It was a big search, and you know, we saw a bunch of actresses everywhere. And for the role of Emilia, Jack wanted it to be authentic and wanted a trans actor to play the role. There was no question about that. So we stayed with that through the whole process.
Jesus is on my side. Okay, literally. What about Salma Hayek? I know that's a big name, maybe too big. What about Melissa Bajera then? Eiza Gonzalez, Anaí Puente. Habla, esta gente habla. That's me. I could cite all the rebelde. Not the 2022 one. I confess, the only Mexican actors I know are from the telenovelas, like Rubí, La Usurpadora, and Maria la del Barrio, La Mucha, because they were really popular here in Brazil. But it was not my job to look for those people. It was theirs. And let's face facts, they didn't want to cast them from the jump. They did cast a trans actor to play a trans role though. Yet it's so funny to me that the rest of the cast, including her, is not Mexican. Zoe Saldana, born in the US and spent her childhood in the Dominican Republic. Selena Gomez is more Italian than Mexican, doesn't even speak Spanish fluently. Carla Sofia Gascon is Spanish, which means she's not even Latinx. The only Mexican in the cast is Adriana Paz, as I said earlier. And it's really ironic how she's the one who gives the best performance out of all of them. Alright, reason number 5, the last one, they refuse to accept criticism. Not only is Selena Gomez bad at speaking Spanish.
Tranquilízate, cálmate.
No tengo ni para comer. Me cortó la lana, cerró la llave. No funciona ninguna tarjeta. Todas mis cuentas están bloqueadas. Me quiere robar a mis hijos. Y ahora mi lana.
Cálmate.
La rojo casa es entre de la escuela. Escribir entre los ojos. Punto. Chupa mi pi.
But she's also bad at accepting criticism. This Mexican actor called Eugenio Derbez made some comments in a podcast about Selena's Spanish. He criticized the lack of a Mexican accent and her disassociation with the language. A clip of his was posted on TikTok, and Selena made a comment that ended up enticing her fan base to harass him. The man had to apologize on TV to be left alone. This is what her comment said. I understand where you are coming from. I'm sorry. I did the best I could with the time I was given. Doesn't take away from how much work and heart I put into this movie. Also, do not ever say my fans are the problem, standing up as you say, for me. Selena also talked about the process in an interview, explaining that she didn't have time to learn Spanish for her role as Jessie.
I'm not as happy with what I feel like I could have done in Spanish, but overall, I hope that it doesn't hinder my performance, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. Perhaps I could have had more time with it, but I was full throttle and I wanted to be a part of this so badly, so It was a challenge for me for sure.
To make matters worse, Carla Sofia Gascon has allegedly made racist, xenophobic comments on Twitter. I tried finding them, and I'm gonna be honest here. As I was researching, I also found some transphobic comments that made me feel really disturbed, so I gave up. Anyway, saying that people were not happy about her attitude would be an euphemism. This person says, Carla Sofia Gascon has always felt superior, but she came to Mexico to ask for work in soap operas because she couldn't find anything in Spain. And now she paints us as assholes because we don't like her filthy movie that is disrespectful to the country that gave her the swallow. Ungrateful. This other person says, Carla Sofia Gascon is a racist, classist, egocentric who believes herself to be above Mexicans, when she would be nothing if she had not moved to our country. So no, it is not envy, nor much less transphobia. And she was responding to this person who was claiming that the critics of the film were transphobic and just didn't like the trans part of the movie, or just didn't like Carla Sofia Gascon for the fact that she is a trans woman. And this other person left movie recommendations for those who want to learn reality in Mexico. Oh, by the way, Carla Sofia Gascon has openly made racist and xenophobic comments over here, just so you know. Support Mexican directors who have portrayed the violence experienced in Mexico. I recommend watching the following films/series. Please, don't take this as hate towards Carla's identity. Sim, mas eu tô acabando, já tá no final. Don't take this as hate towards Carla's identity, because no one ever mentioned her identity at any point, and someone in the replies is saying that we hate her for being trans. This is absolutely not true. In this house, we support the rights of trans people. These are the movies she cites in her post. First one is Tigers Are Not Afraid, or Vuelven, directed by Isa Lopez. The second is La Civil, directed by Teodora Ana Mi. Yes. Third is called Prayers for the Stolen, or Noche de Fuego, by director Tatiana Hueso. Last one's called The Three Deaths of Marisela, directed by Carlos Pérez Osorio. The point is, she blocked the people who were critical of the film and then criticized trans critics, saying, if you don't like the movie, go make your own. This article is from Vanity Fair. The headline says, Emilia Pérez's Carla Sofia Gascon is about to make Oscar history, but she's not done fighting. The Golden Globe nominee reflects on her campaign whirlwind, admits to the parts of awards season she hates, and responds to trans writers who have criticized her film. If you don't like it, go and make your own movie. And this is Gascon's words. Many are running a negative, nasty campaign against the movie. So anything that I say, they will use it to make their case bigger. They hate difference. They intend to control people's bodies because that ends up being a way also to control their minds. When something has a big impact and is liked by many, others hate it just for existing. And then they go on to show bits and pieces of what are some of the criticisms made against this movie. Juan Barquin slammed Emilia Pérez as a regressive picture masquerading as progressive in a review for Little White Lies, explaining, anytime Emilia reverts to her old ways, Gascon lowers her vocal register as if to equate masculinity with evil and femininity with good. In Autostraddle, Drew Burnett Gregory argued, the film hits just about every trans trope you can imagine. Some trans critics have been effusive with Out's May Rude writing that the movie approaches the subject of transition with humor, levity, and curiosity. But while Gascon tells me she hadn't come across these reviews, she didn't hold back her perspective on the debate either. Being LGBTQ, having those labels, does not remove your stupidity, just like heterosexuality does not remove your stupidity, she says. What bothers me is that the people that say things like that are just sitting around at home doing nothing. If you don't like it, go and make your own movie. Go create the representation you want to see for your community. There are some that say, I want to see LGBTQ or trans characters out doing what people do in real life. But we do bad things too. I don't understand the criticism about the representation of portraying Emilia Pérez this way. The reality is that the trans experience is not the same for everybody. My trans experience is different from somebody else's. Juan Barquin, one of the people quoted in this article, went to Twitter to express his resentment towards Gascon's words. He wrote, "Since I'm quoted here and Carla Sofia Gascon's comments seem geared at myself and other trans critics, I like to respond by noting that she can go fuck herself for calling us stupid and also saying, give me the fucking money to make my own trans movie then. I have little to no patience for artists who treat critics like they're disposable and dismiss legitimately thoughtful writing with name-calling. Embarrassing that even the softest criticism is reacted to like this. Good to know her bad performance is just how she normally acts." Oof. Things are not looking good for the cast of this movie. Well, this is it for the controversy. Let's watch it, I guess. Lord have mercy. Mamá na minha pica.